Good evening. Welcome. Welcome. Apologize to keep you waiting. I'm just running a little bit behind here. Yes. And so I wanted to invite you all to sign up for the March retreat. The title of this retreat is Fearless Freedom. And ever since I've been young, I've always been drawn to this word freedom. There was something in me that would spontaneously open, and I would just become as big as the sky. When I was just a little child. But then I would notice at different times in the day, because of fear, often, I'd be quite contracted and I would not feel as big as the sky. I would feel like this teeny little pebble, powerless, and that I could be kicked around by life. And so throughout my spiritual journey, I've always been curious about this direct experience of knowing oneself as freedom. And so we can experience ourselves as waking up to the space of freedom, being free from the difficulties of life, like in a transcendent way. We'll be free of our own self, which is a whole other realm of freedom. So there's a freedom from one's own insanity, freedom from the comings and going of life. But then also there's this other type of freedom, the freedom to be, to be incarnate, to be here, to live one's life fully and completely. And so this is what we're going to be exploring here on this March retreat, is what does it mean to actually be free, to be awake, to experience freedom directly. And so what that means is we experience ourselves as space, not as some dense, guarded, egoic entity, but to know oneself as the sky, vast, spacious, and free. And then from that place, we begin to know oneself as the earth. Because the earth, of course, is not afraid to be here. The earth is continually manifesting, creating. It's a movement. Not only it's a movement of life, but it is life. And so these will be the two primary questions on this retreat coming up is, well, what does it mean to be free from, and what does it mean to be free to be informed, to live your life, to share and express your gifts here on planet Earth. And as always, because this is a tantric path, well, we look at, well, what's in the way? What is in the way of the direct experience of knowing ourselves as space, as light, as emptiness, and then as the dancing energies of essence, such as there's emptiness, which is always here, but then the direct experience of fullness, the direct experience of bliss, the direct experience of love, of compassion, the direct experience of existence and even non-existence. And that, can be quite confusing. And so I encourage you all to sign up for the retreat if you haven't already, March 3rd through the 5th. And this year, I told you that God's turning up the heat with us. I'm going to start teaching more retreat. I'm inviting a greater commitment from each of you. I've said this many times before, I always made my greatest gains on retreat. And there's still a number of people in the Sangha who are referencing the last retreat, what a big change and shift it was for them. And so I encourage you to sign up. And if you need a scholarship, you always hit me up. I'm pretty good at offering scholarships to any of the live events. And so, if you're having, any trouble with income and that type of thing, just hit me up. Hit me up. But the big thing is I want you to be there. I want you to be there. And so the topic for tonight is going to build upon that. I'd invite you all just to close your eyes and feel into your body. And I want you to notice the tension that's here. Just anywhere throughout the body, just noticing where is there tension. And I want you to notice what that tension feels like. In a very basic way. Does this tension, does it feel like a brick? Does it feel solid? Does it feel full? Are the nerves gripping or holding around that point of tension? And then I want you just to put that tension down. And I want you to notice what it feels like on the top of your head, your crown chakra. So for most of us, our crown chakra is pretty wide open, very spacious and free. Very spacious and free. And then to have a little bit of fun, I invite you to bring your awareness to the bottoms of your feet. And can you notice just a quiet, innocent sense of spaciousness in the bottoms of the feet? And perhaps in your toes, you can feel a sense of spaciousness. In your fingertips, the palms of your hands. But there is space here. And now I invite you, again, just to scan your body, notice a point of tension. And I invite you almost to imagine turning on the lights, like maybe a giant spotlight on the inside. Perhaps looking in a place you normally don't look. Pelvic floor, lower belly, back, the spine, the back of the skull, the jaw, behind the eyes. And I invite you just to look at this place that is tense. And in a loving way, a compassionate way, a curious way, I invite you to ask that part of you, why are you tense? Why are you holding? So without any judgment, without any condemning, without any making anybody wrong, we're just asking these places, why are you tense? Like, what's going on with you? And almost like the same way we treat a puppy, like if you saw a lost puppy, you might kind of go up and scratch it behind the ears, letting it know that you're friendly. I want to invite you in the same way to approach the tension. Begin to breathe into it and to soften around it. Just to soften around it. See each and every breath. Just softening around the tension. And again, asking it, what do you need? How can I be supportive to you? And just saying if it wants to tell you something or show you something. Sometimes it might show you an aspect of its pain or its hurting or why it is hurt. But sometimes it might even show you a strength that it has. An aspect of repressed divinity or repressed emotion. A repressed truth. It might show you an old story from the past of a response to, like a childlike response to a father or mother, or sister or brother, or coach or somebody. And in the most loving way, we simply listen and be with. Listen. And be with what's here. And if you feel, again, I want you to notice, has that point of tension actually transformed? Maybe loosened up, softened up. Has it transformed into the experience of spaciousness? Whether it's a 1% change or 10% or 30 or 100%. Just to notice, just to acknowledge. Through being present with whatever's here. That very thing begins to be liberated. Be liberated. That very thing, whatever it was once holding, is softening and becoming more spacious. And so you can continue to breathe and feel and just inquiring into your body. If there's more points of tension, and I encourage you to soften around those, to melt, to breathe into them, to be with them. And as you do so, I want you to notice how these things just begin to turn into space. Turn into space. Right there in your direct experience. And so you can continue with that. I mean, if you like, you keep your eyes closed, and I want to shift gears a little bit here. And there's a fundamental truth, a very basic, yet incredibly powerful spiritual truth that most of us, we don't realize, we don't know. That we were born, literally, born as space. Our consciousness is space. It has always been space. What consciousness is, it is a space, the space, the one space. Fully complete and undivided. But when we're children, we begin to have feelings and experiences. Some are comfortable, some are uncomfortable. And these feelings and experiences, we latch onto, we attach to them, we hold on to them, we guard against them, we grasp at them, grasp for them. And between, the ages of 0 and I guess it goes on forever for a lot of people, but all these thoughts and these feelings, we grasp onto them and they become our self-image. And the more self-image we have, the more dense we will feel. The more dense we'll feel, the more heavy, more tight, constricted. So anytime you have a self-image, basically you're putting a boundary on space, putting a wall in space. And so I want you to imagine that we're all have our own private little prison cell. And let's just call that a body. That's how I experienced my body when I was a kid, as this little prison cell. And the more I grew up, like the more ideas and thoughts, beliefs that I attached to, and I took on more self-image that created more walls within my little cell. Maybe it doesn't have to be a prison cell. Maybe it can be what we're spiritual people. Let's have it be one of those little monastic cells, a little cell that you have in the convent. We might call that our room. If we start filling our room, cluttering our room, not like a good little monk or nun who has nothing, but a bad little monk or nun, we just start filling it up with stuff. Filling it up with stuff. Thoughts and ideas about the other monks and nuns, opinions and beliefs about, the church or the religious organization we're a part of, thoughts and beliefs about our fellow sisters and brothers and other individuals on the path, thoughts and belief about our sexuality, our gender, our age, our position in life. Thoughts and belief about politics and what the government should be doing. And as you see, we start filling up our little cell. And if we take these things to be true, if we're very serious about how we hold on to them, very serious about how we hold on to them, that's going to create more and more feelings of solidity and boundaries within oneself. And the more we do this, the denser our psychological nature is, the heavier, the thicker it is with self-image, the less space we will experience. The less space we will experience. And so this brings up a great question. Do I want to be a me, a character? Do I want to be, it says some fun here, red hot, flaming political activist, anarchist, right wing, left wing, whatever it is. Like, do I want to be this person, that person? And the payoff for that, like the price for that, will be you'll feel heavy, you'll feel dense, you'll feel thick. And you won't feel space. Or am I willing to surrender, to let go, to see through, to melt, to meet with love, to kindness, to meet with presence, my self-image? And it's just this gentle dance of when we meet our self-image with presence, the self-image, the boundaries begin to dissolve. When we meet our self-image, the same way we'd meet someone at a political rally. I'm right, you're right, we're both right, the other people are wrong, we got to get them. The more we meet our self-image this way, where we're fully identified with it, taking it totally seriously, just in that moment, you will begin to experience less and less and less and less and less space, less and less and less of your essential nature. This is a very basic truth on the path. And there's this funny game of when you begin to deconstruct your self-image, take it apart. Take it apart, which means I'm not going to take it so seriously. I might begin to question it. I might inquire into it. As soon as you begin to do that, you'll notice you start feeling more and more spacious, more and more empty, more and more free, more and more free. And so I might just ask, some fun questions while we're here. Most of you have your eyes closed still. And so I'll ask you, if you look right now, if you're deeply honest with yourself, what makes up your self-image? What makes it up? What are some of the primary players? Self-image. I'm going to have some fun. And I encourage you just to say it out loud. There's probably nobody around. I'm going to say mine out loud. One image I have a little shred of is country bumpkin from Kentucky. So there's a little bit of a country bumpkin from Kentucky within me. That's where I was born. That's where my family's from. And as I hold it lightly, I can smile, and there's spaciousness around it. There's emptiness around it. There's freedom in it. There's even like a quiet sense of joy because I don't take it too seriously. Not having to wave a Kentucky flag. Not having to drive a big pickup, a truck. Like some of my cousins. And so again, I invite you just to feel into yourself and say, like, what makes up my self-image like? And you have some fun. You can see the lighthearted aspects of self-images are probably easy to see. And then I invite you to look at, well, what are some of the denser forms of self-image? What are some of the denser forms of self-image? The heavier forms of self-image within me. And with these heavier forms, I'm going to ask you, how do you defend, guard, even hide the denser forms of self-image? Like, do I defend my inner child? Like, do I defend him against life with like supreme righteousness or tension or holding or angst or fear, anxiety? Sometimes it's funny, sometimes we use anxiety to defend against others. We feel anxious and we run. We feel anxious and we run. Very human thing, very biological thing. How do you guard your self-image? Are the parts of it that you hide? You're afraid if people see them, they might reject them. Do we do that game? Do we hide parts of ourselves? Do we hide parts of ourselves? And are you willing to see what is driving some of these aspects of self-image? Are you willing to see what's driving some of these aspects of self-image, like the force behind them? Is it hope? Is it fear? Again, fear of rejection. Is it anger? Is it jealousy? Is it envy? Are you willing to see and experience the space in which self-image arises? Sometimes when we focus just in on self-image, we think we are that thing. And can you notice the space around self-image or different layers of self-image? If we focus in a little bit on this space or open to this space, again, can you notice the self-image softening, relaxing? If it's really tight and tense, you could breathe, sense of compassion into any tightly held or defended, guarded aspect of self-image. And again, I invite you to notice now that does any aspect of that self-image begin to liberate and turn to space. Literally transform into space. And I invite you to smile a little bit, like, oh, how wonderful is that? The path of waking up. It's actually quite simple. It's the willingness to open to that which is tight, the willingness to investigate, to deconstruct our self-image, willingness to let go of that which is untrue, no longer necessary. No longer necessary. The willingness to see what is beyond all the things we take ourselves to be. And so we see that through being present with self-image, different aspects of self-image, we feel more spacious, we feel more empty, we experience directly freedom, spaciousness. And you might even notice an aspect of your essential nature coming online that is balancing or even more healing. Like if we had anger here and you open to anger, there's lots of space to receive the anger, tremendous amount of peace and compassion to respond to the anger. If there's a sense of defendedness, you might notice the essential quality of like a compassionate vulnerability and a tenderness and innocence. If there's a part of you that's rejected yourself, might be a greater acceptance, the energy of acceptance coming online. And so again, just smiling and softening and trusting. Trusting that the path doesn't have to be too hard. Too hard. And so now I would like to shift a little more and speak about one of the great reasons that many of us do not open to spaciousness is because it often reminds us of some form of deficiency or lack. Some traditions call this the void. Like psychologically, we wouldn't want to open to the void. It would seem like open to a deep, dark, depressed place where we are abandoned or exiled. And so often when people are just beginning to get to know this path of spacious openness, we begin to open to it. If I say, hey, would you like to come on a 10-day meditation retreat without your cell phone, without your cell phone, without your computer, without your laptop, without that thing that you can plug into and constantly distract yourself. Like for a lot of people, that would bring up a great deal of fear. Because many people, they equate spaciousness with a feeling of nothingness or deficiency, a feeling of lack, a feeling of like a deep, dark, cold void, a feeling of depression or being impoverished or lacking in any kind of positive emotion. And so many of us, we avoid this inherent spaciousness, which is always here. And we fill it up with self-image. Layers upon layers of self-image. So with the self-image, we say, oh, I know what I am. I know what this is. I am this thing. I am a right-wing, what is it? God, guns, and gold kind of guy. That's what I am. Right-wing God, guns, and gold. That's what I am. And but if I open up to space, it might remind me of like a time when mother abandoned me or father disappeared, or a time when I was alone. And there's a lot of people that fall into this class. They don't want to open to space because as soon as they begin to open to space, there's like this, like a shaking anxiety that begins to come forward. And it's like, oh no, I don't want to face that thing. And so I want to busy myself. What a lot of people, they don't have the maturity to know, or the wherewithal to know that if I just sit with my anxiety for 5 breaths, for 10 breaths, for 100 breaths, that anxiety will begin to unravel, begin to empty, begin to release itself and become space. And a space that's welcoming, that has a feeling of joyousness to it, and light, and radiance, and boundlessness, and just a feeling of a lightheartedness. As you keep sitting with that space, you begin to notice it. It feels so whole and complete, welcoming. Feels like not just a breath of fresh air, but a trillion breaths of fresh air, that you are fresh air. That you are reborn in this moment. Reborn in this moment. And so it takes courage often on this path, opening to space. We mustn't be fooled by our immature ego that looks at space and quickly labels it deficient emptiness, a deficient void, a feeling of lack. You have to be a little courageous. We have to get to know. Get to know what is here. Get to know what is here. When we get to know what is here, we see that there's room, there's space for everything. And the more space there is, the less suffering there is, the less problem there is. You know, I can, I'll tell you about a funny experience I had 2 nights ago. We had this parade here in Durango, and it's a snowdown parade is what they call it. It's a pretty wild ordeal, and you have a little girl, and so she wanted to go to the parade. So it's like, all right, we'll go. We'll go down there. And in the parade, like here in places that are really cold at night, they do this thing where they'll bring like a hot air balloon basket on the back of a truck or a trailer or something. And there's normally a couple guys in there, and that hot air balloon's got a burner on it. So the burner is like this big flamethrower. And if you ever been around one, like they're pretty terrifying. Now on a freezing night, they're kind of fun, they're kind of exciting. In a parade, they're fun and exciting. And so, we're hanging out and watching all the parade, cars, trucks, whatever, floats is the word I'm looking for, go by. And there's a number of these balloons. So there's no balloon, it's just the basket with the burner, and they just pulling that thing, and they're shooting out like a 15-foot flame, and they can tilt it to the right and the left, and it really heats up the crowd. Like you can feel it. You're like, wow. And it's kind of nice, but it's also kind of terrifying as well. And so we were hooting and hollering while that was happening. And the next morning, my daughter and I woke up, and my backyard, my new house, I have this incredible view, just an amazing view. And there's these two big mountains. One is, it's funny to even name a mountain, but one's called Missionary Ridge, and the other one's Animas Mountain. They're these big wedges that just, come up out of the earth and just expand into the big blue sky. And so me and my daughter, we were outside, and I said, "Oh, look, honey, like there's one of the balloons out there above Animas Mountain." And the balloon was like this big, this big, this big. I could put my just little finger on it, and just the tip of my fingers, one digit could have covered it up. And so that's the perception, the experience of space, spaciousness. When there's space, we don't need to be afraid. We don't hoot and holler. We don't get carried away. We don't get frightened. There's space. There's room for everything to be as it is, whether that thing is beautiful, floating hot air balloon, or terrifying, a giant torch coming close to your body. Coming close to your body. There's space. I think that's one of the reasons people love the mountains. Is, with elevation, you see how big the sky is. And then there's this other quality that we begin to experience in the mountains. It's the immensity of the mountain, the solidity of the mountain. But as you feel into a mountain directly, even though it's completely solid, mountains have a quality of just immense emptiness, immense spaciousness. And so is true with our nature. It's a transcendent emptiness and space. There's a grounded, rooted, direct experience of space as a very matter of our being, very form of our being. And as we open to this, realizing space in form is the opposite experience of feeling deficient or lacking or impoverished. You no longer feel abandoned, or I'm going to use this word, or rejectable by life. We feel, I'm going to use a funny word, unrejectable, unharmable, uncorruptible. ineffable. Ineffable and incorruptible. And so anyways, I hope all of you are joining me in this direct experience of spaciousness and just realizing this is the ground of our being, the ground of everything is space. And out of this space arises and can manifest the various essential qualities of being in response to life, and can dance as life, dance with life and dance as life. So anyways, if anyone has a question, you can bring it forward. Someone emailed me a question. I think there was a couple email questions, and I apologize. That's why I was late looking for the questions. Found one, but I didn't find the others. Hi, Craig. Could you speak a bit about stepping into the role of a healer, particularly, if I can say that word, in dealing with fear and doubt about one's ability and the judgment of others? Thanks for your teachings, Felix. Felix, I love this question. It's such a great question. This is what God gives us. And I spoke about this last week. This is the rub. God gives us a gift. And then God gives us a rub, a challenge. And it's through facing this challenge that you realize the gift, that the gift becomes manifest. So any good healer, teacher, guide, counselor, therapist, whatever it is, I would hope in the beginning they have this great desire to shine their heart into the world, to share their heart, to be a service, to connect with others in a deep and immediate way. And at the same time, it's actually good when that healer has doubt about one's abilities. What doubt does is when we really work with doubt, we open to doubt, we soften around doubt. I don't mean believe in doubt, but if we just soften around it, if we see, yeah, like I have something I want to share, but I'm feeling a little nervous about it. And that nervousness, like if you sit with it with a spaciousness and an open heart, it will begin to transform into a quality of humility. And humility is a great thing, a great thing. Keeps you honest. It makes, with humility, like you're not going to be a cult leader. You're not going to be taking advantage of people. I recently was working with someone, and she came to me, and she worked with all these healers who did nothing but take advantage of her. And I was like, my God, what kind of path are you on with these people you're meeting? All these people taking advantage of you. I was like, so to have some doubt in oneself, again, is a good thing. If you work with it, it will quickly transform into humility. One of the things that slows it down is, the second part of Felix's question is, well, what if there's this fear of judgment from others? Well, I'm going to remind you, I got my handy little crucifix here. So I pull it up. If we want to be great, there's a good chance we'll be judged. We'll be judged. And, in the modern age, judgment, like often, we're not going to be nailed to a cross. We're not going to be burned on a stake. It's going to be YouTube comments. It's what it's going to be. It's going to be people writing a mean review, about us as a healer on Google reviews. It's going to be someone who says, who do you think you are? And normally that person who's saying, who do you think you are? Like that person is living in fear. Like they have a gift within them too. And they know they have a gift and they're afraid to express it. Or maybe they did express it and someone squashed them. And so now they want to squash you to make themselves feel better or something. I don't know. People play these games. But the bottom line here is if we have doubt, we have fear, then we must have faith. We must have faith. Have faith in our gift, faith that we are a child of God, faith that there's something good within us. When we have faith, basically what we're telling life, telling God, telling the world, is that we believe in evolution. I believe in evolution. I believe that something greater is wanting to come forward out of the darkness, out of the depths of my being. Having faith is what every seed has within it. It's faith. Give it some water, you give it dirt, and that seed's going to begin to grow. It's going to come out of its shell. It's going to come out of its shell. And so Felix, we could look at this question from a lot of different angles. It's a way of worshiping God. It's through listening to your gift and bringing it forward and seeing that you are obligated to share this gift. I have this gift within me and I'm obligated to share it. Like I can't not do it. If I do, I condemn myself to hell. And it's just a hell of meaninglessness or pointlessness. I won't be burning in hell, but I'll feel meaningless. If I choose to be an ice cream salesman for my life, there's going to be a sense of meaninglessness about it. It's not going to feel like the truth. I'm going to suffer. And so it's a way I worship God is through honoring the gift that God has put within me, the job that God has put within me, the obligation. It's a different way of putting it. I like having this metaphor that God's the boss and I'm the servant, and so I'm real happy with that. Another way, Felix, of looking at it is it's an act of self-love for you to look inside to get to know yourself. If you look at yourself, whoever's here, whether it's Taylor, or Mike, Chrissy, or Justina, to look at yourself, look inside, and to find what is radically good and what wants to become manifest, and to listen to it, to open to it, to support it coming forward. To support it coming forward. I have a little girl, and she wants to, I call it ice dancing. She wants to be an ice dancer. What's it called? Figure skating. She wants to be a figure skater. Maybe she is a figure skater. And so I go and, I sat with her for an hour and a half at a freezing cold ice rink and watched her ice skate, tied her skates a bunch of times and get them tighter and tighter and support her and cheer her on. And I don't sit there and stare at my phone. I look at her. And I smile and I wave and I clap and I smile more and I wave and I clap. And I support what's within her that wants to come forward. I support what's within her. And so, Felix, it's an act of love for you to support what's within you. And, I could listen to some other parents, and some other parents might say, oh, your kid's not going to be an ice dancer. She's not going to be a good figure skater. She should be doing something different. She should be at home doing her chores. Something I could listen to some other parent, some old grumpy parent who has that type of thought. This would be the judgment of others. Judgment of others. But I'm not going to listen to the judgment of others. I'm not going to bow to the judgment of others. I'm not going to join them in ignorance. And I'm not going to be fearful of judgment of others. My daughter wants to figure skate. That's what we're going to do. That's what we're going to do. And I'm going to support her in this. And so Felix, I encourage you, like if you see that there's a healer within you, to support this, to honor this. To honor this. Again, it's an act of radical love. It's an act of, I'm going to use an old word, of obedience to God. It's an act of worship to God. People think their gift belongs to them, but our gift belongs to God, and it's an act of obedience to honor this. And as you honor it, the payment that you receive is happiness, meaning, sense of joy, sense of connectivity, sense of truth, sense of like healthy righteousness and nobility. And so anyways, it's a beautiful question. I support everyone living their truth, sharing their gift, expressing their truth. And the thing too is, like sometimes we go out into the world and we fail. And that's okay. Like we need to honor the fact that this is an evolutionary world. We need to honor that fact. And so if we go out as a healer and we fail the first time, the first 2 years, like we might study Reiki and fail as a Reiki practitioner. We may study polarity therapy and fail at that. And then healing touch and fail at that. And then study massage and realize we have an incredible gift as a Rolfer massage person. We have an incredible gift at this one thing. We have an incredible gift at, being an acupuncturist or something. It's funny. I created a healing arts center a long time ago, and so we had all kinds of healers work for us. And sometimes they'd show up and they'd bring like a resume with a business card, and they'd have like 25 letters after their name. I'm I don't even know what they are. I think I'm an LPC, whatever that is, an MA. Once I had an MA, an LPC, an NBCT or something. But, other people, they had like all these letters after their name. They just keep piling them up. No, I was like, man, what are all those letters doing for you? And like, I don't know, Craig. These are all the trainings I took. And I just kept taking trainings, and I feel like it gives me some credibility. What gives you credibility is your heart and your willingness to listen to your heart. Because then you develop a depth about you. When you speak, when you act, when you place your hands on someone, people will feel that depth. That's your credibility. That's your credibility. You're a child of God. How about that for credibility? And so anyways, like don't be afraid to go out and fail and try and make some mistakes and learn and grow and explore. And sometimes we think we're supposed to hit a home run right away. I certainly didn't hit any home runs right away. Okay. Let's see here. Oh, here's Jay's asking a fun question. What artists, musicians do you think had active kundalini? Which ones didn't? Which ones didn't? Um, Let me think here. David Bowie, I think, is a fun example. Throw Jimi Hendrix in there. Jerry Garcia, of course. To name a few. Name a few. Yeah. Yeah. I had a list before, but I'm going just completely blank. Completely blank right now. I had a good list, some that were really confirmed, but maybe someone's throwing some out there. Let's see. Someone knows some things. Bobby McFerrin, Claude Debussy. I don't know the Claude one. David Bowie was definitely an alien, though, too. He was absolutely. Okay. Robbie Miller is asking a question that's in alignment with the spaciousness one. What about going into spaciousness versus spiritual bypassing? Yeah. So the spaciousness that I'm speaking about is an inclusive spaciousness. It's a spaciousness that is felt in the body, a spaciousness that embraces the pain. And so sometimes we go into like a transcendent space, and that can lead us into some disassociative states. And things can get very strange in those states. We can even hide out in them and experience depersonalization and derealization. But the spaciousness, Robbie, I'm speaking about is spaciousness felt in the body. When it's felt in the body, it's inclusive and it's healing and it's integrating. That'll be a quick answer there. Yeah, I like what Lucas wrote. Going into spaciousness to look from there versus going into spaciousness to not having to look at something. Yeah. Okay. All right, here's a question from, is it Jan and Don? Let's see. I'm going to unmute you. Let's see who's going to show up.
Hey, Craig. Thank you. Just kind of
Yeah.
want to express my gratitude to you and the Sangha. Jen and I have been eating up the old satsangs and reading the books and loving it. And I asked the mother to help me keep this short, so I just want to say I love some of the things you said. It's funny that you gave this talk tonight. Things you said about space of awareness, just a couple real brief.
Yeah.
There's one I love when Adya said to you, if you want to wake up and stay awake, bring your attention there. I love this. Leave it there. Like, don't do anything. It's like,
Yeah.
let go. Leave it there. I love that. And there's another one I never heard it put this way before. Jen and I really sat with this for quite a while. He said, why are people waking up and not staying awake? Because they've made a choice to live the animal human way, to avoiding pain and seeking pleasure. So we went around that day like, so that's it. That's like, it's pulling the attention. I could feel the things that I'm afraid of.
Yeah.
Like I'm someone who's always sort of learned things pretty quickly. And there's some software that your daughter could probably learn faster than me. I'm going crazy every day trying to learn it. And I think, what's wrong with me? I'm a yogi. I should learn this. I shouldn't be
Yeah.
upset, right? And you're saying, it's an evolutionary world, Don. I love that.
Yeah.
It's an evolutionary world. And just one more, I love this too. You were saying, and I never heard this quite put this way. It was really beautiful. A lot of people, when they open the space of awareness, kind of open here in this kind of mental space.
Yeah.
And the way you said it, that you can open to the heart. And there's a
Yeah.
whole different quality of love. And you open to the gut and the power of the divine will there.
Yeah.
And boy, I really just so appreciate that. I tell you, I'll make a commitment in front of everyone. Tomorrow morning, when I go back to learning this, we got some online courses in this. How do I say this? I started out with my first degree was a BM. So I had to go to graduate school to not have a BM after my name. It was a music degree.
Yeah.
I've got a BM. So I had this intellectual pride of learning things, right? So God, of course, she's taken me and said, okay, Don, you think you're so smart. You're going to take this software that any kid could learn in, 2 weeks. And I said, struggle for weeks. So I promise tomorrow morning, I'm thinking of you guys. And, as I'm sitting there cursing and struggling and getting lost in this, I'm going to okay, evolutionary world, mother, I promised Craig, I promised everyone last night, I'm not going to get totally lost in this. Help me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
thank you. I really appreciate you guys.
Yeah. 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 Of course. Let me ask you though, real quick. I'm not going to get lost in the struggle.
Yeah.
What's the struggle about? Like, what makes up the struggle?
This is great. Well, the first thing that comes up is the feeling this shouldn't be.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be this way. I shouldn't be this way. And I'm bad for being this way.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
let's look at that. We'll start with a basic question. Is it true
Yeah.
that you're bad because there's a struggle here?
Yeah. If I want to be real sincerely answer you, I'll say, yeah, mentally, I know it's not true. It
So,
feels in the body. Yeah.
so where in the body does it feel?
It feels really, really deep in the gut
Yeah.
that, yeah, this is bad. This shouldn't be.
This is bad and this shouldn't be. So if you
Yeah.
feel into that place and you let that place speak to you, maybe with an image or a
It
memory.
feels more like a feeling of nausea starts to come up.
Okay, good. So nausea is often the energy of a transformation. Let's beginning to cook that.
Yeah, it's starting to boil a little bit.
Yeah. And so if we just feel into the heat, but again, I want you to see if you can feel into that feeling of I'm bad
Mhm,
or this is bad,
mhm.
and just being with the heat, being with the nausea. Being with the discomfort. And again, you can ask it if there's some old truth there that wants to come forward to be seen, or old memory or
The image of
heartache.
someone, shaking their finger at me and saying you're bad,
Yeah,
you're stupid, you're a fool.
yeah,
There's
yeah,
also a feeling of shrinking into that little energy vortex,
yeah.
and yeah, kind of
Yeah, so
like expanding
let's
and
bring
contracting.
them both into the light. So the one who's pointing
Yeah,
and the one who's shrinking.
yeah,
Let's bring them both into the light. And if the one who's pointing,
yeah.
if we ask that one, like, what do you need?
Huh. The one who is pointing suddenly said, "I need you to protect me. I need you to help me."
Need you to protect me
Yeah,
and to help me.
and that Don has somehow failed that to be there for that person.
So can we be there
Yeah.
for that part of ourself right now? Can we open to that part of ourselves with a sense of love and open-heartedness?
Yeah, the words that kind of come are, I can't promise I can always be right for you, but I can promise I can always be there for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. I want you just to feel the softness in that.
yeah,
Like I won't always be right and won't always be perfect from human standards,
yeah.
but I can be there. I can be here. I can be with you. I
But
can be with you.
yeah, there's a little desire to go back into the fire because I could feel as this starts to soften, I can feel myself again, almost like as a little child in front of the computer, like crying, like, I can't do this. Don't make me do this. It's
Yeah.
too much for me. I'm overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I want you to imagine that there's space here, just holding that child,
Mm,
loving that child, supporting that child. That there's space here and that the space is warm.
mm, mm,
And so we can step into the fire and open to the space.
mm.
Simultaneously, like a warmth, heat,
Yeah.
fire of compassion, being with a child, being with the protector, being with the one who's pointing the finger,
All of them together.
all of them together.
Yeah. They're hugging.
They're hugging, they're unifying.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Nice.
yeah. Well, beautiful, my friend. Will you just keep opening to what's there?
Thank you.
Yeah, yeah, of course. Good to be with you, Don.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Good to be with you. Yeah, and so we can all play this game of just feeling inside and noticing different parts of ourselves. I feel exiled, abandoned, lost, parts of ourselves judging, one part judging another part, one part getting bigger, one part getting smaller. And can we invite a warm love to be with them all, to embrace them all? Can we notice a space in which all of ourselves arise? That this space and this warmth, this fire, is harmonizing, it's unifying, it's healing. It's healing. And Don did a funny thing as he quoted me and he also quoted himself, and both of them said, can you, maybe quoted Adya, can you be there? Can you be there with what is true, with what is real within you? Can you not abandon yourself? Can you not abandon yourself? When we abandon ourselves, we feel split off, we feel divided, and we feel splintered inside. There could be a wounded inner child, a victim, a prostitute, a saboteur, a judge, this and that. If we open up to all of it with spaciousness, with love, and this quality of the hara, which is strength, and in this instance, it's a willingness to sit longer than we would usually sit, to open and to stay, to be anchored. That we stay until the job is done. till it's complete, till it's integrated. And Don brought up this moment in time with the character Craig when I was very divided. I went to visit my teacher, and he asked me, "What is here? What's here?" All the time. Can you be with that thing? Can you open to that thing? Can you stay there? Can you stay with that which is true? When you stay with that which is true, all the parts of you that are evolutionary, that are confused or untrue, they're all held. They will all melt. They will all bow. They all merge. They will all integrate eventually into the truth. But if we have parts of ourselves that are untrue and we agree with them, it's like when an old friend who's trouble comes to town and we go, we merge into him and merge it, then we go out and we get in trouble. We end up, in the jailhouse or whatever it is. We end up in hot water. We end up in the wrong part of town or whatever it is. We end up in a pickle, as one person would say. And so we can follow the untruth. Our whole life can be just splintered, divided, and chasing all these untruths. Or we can stay with the truth. And in the truth, there is space, there's love, there's strength, there's power, there's light. And only this has the energy, the ability to gather up all the exiles, to bring them home to the land of the free, and bring them into a state of unity, happiness, and joy. So anyways, okay, oh look, Anne's here. Anne has a question. Let's hear from Anne.
Hi, Craig.
Hi, Anne.
Trying not to abandon myself and ask you, your teaching is really like what I've been working with. And you said something about, the more we identify with our self-image, we limit ourselves. And, but I feel like for me, I've gone the other way. Like I haven't really had a big self-image, and I've more just allowed other people to tell me what I am.
Yeah.
And, and it goes with this thought that, oh, well, it doesn't matter.
I'm gonna stop you, Anne, because that is a self-image of smallness. That's a self-image of smallness. We identify with a self-image of smallness, and we do it as to protect ourselves from being seen, being hurt, from getting in trouble, or for a variety of reasons. We identify with a very small self-image, but when we look at it, it's a massive self-image. Now, when I look at your truth, Anne, you are an incredible goddess, an incredible healer. And so I want you to identify with your bigness. But if you look at your bigness, if you open to your bigness, you'll notice it doesn't have boundaries. Like there's a vastness to it. Whereas in the self-image, the self-image of being small, there's like a claustrophobic condensedness to it, like a feeling of being like squished and teeny or whatever. But in truth, like you are an immense light. And spiritual awakening, it's a path of identification. So what do we identify with? Do we identify with a faulty self-image? Or are we going to identify with our brilliance, our light, our depth, our immensity? And so this is going to be very healing for you, is for you to step into your bigness. Your bigness.
Well, yeah, thank you. Well, along the way, what's been happening, just, it almost seems petty, but say I'll have an interaction with someone, and then I feel like they'll have an image they're projecting on me. And in the past, it'll be kind of, whatever, I don't care. And I'm kind of like, no, wait a minute.
Right.
Like, you think I'm this, but I'm actually that. But part of me doesn't even believe any of it. And I think it's stupid. But like, do you think that's healing for me to
Absolutely.
just kind of because I'm such a
so what you're bringing forward is you're bringing forward the developmental steps of going from point A to point B. So there's some developmental steps where you need to get your voice, you need to speak up, you need to start defending yourself in a healthy way. Because if not, there's always going to be like a silent kind of angst within you, or an anxiety or a fear or this and that. And so we need to build ourselves up in a very healthy way first, defending what's here in a healthy way. And we don't have to do anything unhealthy, but it'd be very healthy for you to make this developmental step forward of correcting people and standing in your truth, standing in your power. And as you do this, you'll find your throat chakra opening, you'll find a fire in your belly growing, you find your heart expanding. Because again, like you're stepping into a fearless expressiveness where you are honoring the humanity of what's here. And the more fully you honor your humanity, then the more easy it's going to be for you to step into your divinity. And you're already doing this. You're already doing this. But if you ignore your human self and make yourself small, then your human self will have a fight within it, a struggle, and it won't be it'll lead to all these inner fights and the sense of unworthiness. And it's very hard to open to the truth when we feel unworthy, when we feel less than. Much easier when you see that what you are is good, what you are is whole, what you are is worthy and of value. Yeah, so very beautiful, Anne. Anything else?
No, you said what I was hoping you would say. Yeah, and I think it's just part of this bypassing also, because I had this awakening a long time ago where I saw through my ego, and I saw that it didn't exist. And so there's a part of me that just wants to kind of go, oh, well, none of it's, you're not really a real person, so why are you fighting about it? Like, but you're telling me that would be healthy.
It would be healthy. And also, the problem with a realization like that, like sometimes we have a very beautiful, transcendent realization where we just see that, nothing exists, nothing is real, it's all an illusion. Sometimes we wake up to realization that we don't exist, that nothing exists. And it's like, okay, so that's one level of the absolute. But another level of the absolute is God walking in the form of you, living in the form of you, speaking in the form of you, mothering in the form of you, healing in the form of you. So there's God in the absolute of the unmanifest, but there's God in the form of the manifest. And we can wake up to one, non-existence, and our whole life will be a disaster if we just stay in that and we allow that to be, if we project that one realization onto the totality of our life. And this is, the complexity of being human, is there's an absolute realm that's here. There's relative realms. And there's also an absolute realm of the relative, which is what I'm speaking about here is I want you to live your truth, embody your truth, be the truth here on planet Earth, because this is where most of your life is lived. This is where most of your life is lived. You know, I mean, for some of us, maybe we have 10 or 20% of our time where we can just merge into some kind of samadhi state. That's wonderful. But then the rest of the day, when we get up, how are we going to respond to life, to our other fellow human beings, other manifestations of God here on planet Earth? We're going to meet it with kindness, with love, with light, with truth, with power, with authority and autonomy. Or are we just going to be bumbling around just saying we're unworthy and nothing's real? And, you know, often when we do that, we spiral into debt, or our relationships fall apart, or you know, the body begins to break down, and it normally doesn't work out too good, you know, for us. And so anyways, so beautiful to be with you, Anne.
Yeah, thank you, Craig.
Yeah, of course. Much love. Okay. Well, look at that. Another wonderful evening. So please sign up for the retreat. I want you all to join. I want you all to be there. Again, if you need a scholarship, just email me and we'll get you in the door. And I encourage you all just to play with this question of what does it mean to be free? What makes up my self-image? And if you can directly feel the tension around different aspects of your self-image, and can you soften there? Can we meet it with love and kindness? Can we be curious about it? Can we open? And as we open, can we watch? Watch patiently as these things that were once rigid turn into space. So anyways, so much love to each of you. Lovely to be with you all. And we'll see you all soon. Good night.